Well, Asia is an aspirational society, and as such, education is a very important part of life. Culturally, for Asian parents, all want a better education for their children than they themselves had. And in this day and age, most are looking for an education that provides global opportunities for their children. Rising affluence has also increased the demand for a better education. However, we've observed two trends which are interesting. One is that there is a seeming lack of confidence in local educational institutions, and secondly, that tertiary institutions in the region are not really operating to international standards, and this has driven the increasing demand for private education, as well as increasing the numbers of students traveling abroad to seek a better education. In 2016, Forbes predicted that by 2026, the international school market globally would account for a $90 billion industry. Today, about 50% of international schools in the world are based in Asia, and about 60% of students attending international schools are also from the region. When it comes to children traveling abroad to study, if one was to look at Australia, in 1994 there were only 100,000 foreign students in that country, and that number ballooned to 800,000 by 2017. Well, going back almost 10 years, the private equity industry has been very active in the region and in the sector, specifically in countries like Singapore and Malaysia. Some have estimated that the private education sector is a $90 to $110 billion industry in Southeast Asia alone. One of the most notable transactions was in April 2017 when Nord Anglia Education was privatized for $4.3 billion by a group of private equity investors. Now, Nord Anglia is one of the world's leading providers of premium private education services and operates in 15 countries, including many in Asia. Despite the enthusiasm for private sector investment in the sector, there is a word of caution. Education is a highly regulated industry in some countries. As an example, in countries like Indonesia, foreigners can't own education assets or are limited to profitable investments only in informal education companies. Well, when thinking about opportunities, the big picture is very important. In 2016, the US think tank, the Brookings Institute, predicted that there is a financing gap in the global education sector of between 22 to 33 billion US dollars in developing countries, which include some in Asia. Specifically in China, the government outlined in its 13th five-year plan that it wanted to encourage private sector investment, specifically in the subsectors of tertiary colleges, online training and online academies. So we think that there's still a very big opportunity for private investment in education across the region. Now, Harmony Capital focuses on the small and middle market space, and as such, what we find interesting is looking for companies that are feeding and supporting the growing demand for private education. Specifically, we're interested in online learning platforms, access to tutoring by digital means, accommodation for foreign students, and also the provision of extracurricular activities by the private sector, such as music and sporting academies.